So let's say, everything goes well, you guys get greenlit for a sequel. What would you want from a Deadpool sequel?
I expect if we're going to do a sequel, let's see, I waited 10 years to do this first one. I've been begging Fox to make a Deadpool movie for 10 years. It's been this has been a very, very long road for me. So I felt like it was fitting if we wait 10 years to do a sequel.
Right. So Deadpool 2 coming soon in 2034.
Yeah. I may have seen some potential outlines for a sequel, and I may have seen some.
Oh! Tim Miller has actually talked about, he wants like Cable in the sequel, maybe some X-Force action or something like that.
Sure. And I want to be president of Australia. Well, Deadpool's kind of a villain, he's kind of a morally flexible guy. So I would. So it's tough to find it. Usually, like the villain in a Deadpool movie is the good guy.
Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Deadpool X-Force video. The people behind the first movie have been talking about the sequel, as well as crossover with X-Men and X-Force, so here's a quick breakdown. Good news, bad news situation. The bad news is they said there's not going to be any direct crossover with the main X-Men film series anytime soon. It's just going to be the way it was with the first Deadpool movie, making fun of X-Men, which I'm totally fine with. The tone of Deadpool is so different from X-Men right now. The main X-Men series takes itself so seriously right now. They're doing Apocalypse, they're blowing up the world again, so not really expecting anyone to break the fourth wall anytime soon. Even over in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they haven't really broken the fourth wall yet. The tone is a little more whimsical, but the films still take themselves pretty seriously. So the Deadpool universe is going to be its own thing, the X-Men universe is going to be its own thing. The Deadpool writers actually cited the Iron Man films. They were like, there were 2 Iron Man films before we ever saw Avengers. So think of Deadpool appearing with the X-Men, I'm talking about the main X-Men team, on camera as being just like Iron Man with the Avengers. Isn't it kind of funny how times have changed? Normally you'd think that Wolverine was the Iron Man character of the X-Men universe, like that one character who's super popular and you could just put him in anyone else's movie and it'll totally help out. Now that character is Deadpool because Hugh Jackman's kind of on his way out. Even Ryan Reynolds was skeptical about the idea of Hugh Jackman, putting the claws back on again after his next Wolverine movie, after that Old Man Logan movie. He's like, yeah, it's probably not going to happen. So Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool is the new Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man of Fox's X-Men universe. And I think that's a good thing. Deadpool is such an extreme character, it's a lot easier for him to break through the noise, like the superhero noise, than any of the other more stereotypical superheroes. Right now, Deadpool, bigger character than Apocalypse, and Apocalypse is one of those Omega-level mutants in the Fox universe. I've already talked about the Deadpool sequel using Cable. There's a number of ways they could pit them against each other, because for most of their early relationship in the comics, they were always at each other's throats. Deadpool was always the villain, Cable was always the hero that had to stop him. But another funny quote from Ryan Reynolds, he said that because Deadpool is the protagonist in all of his movies, that would make Cable the villain. Anybody that is a hero in a Deadpool movie is automatically the villain. Anybody that's trying to stop Deadpool from having his fun, completing his mission. Now what about X-Force? That movie's still in development, but it's a whole different thing from the Deadpool sequel. Fox is really hoping to spin out a couple of their franchises because X-Men does fine, it makes tons of money, but the more they can build out this story universe, that's what they call these big film universes. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is a story universe, so all the film studios are trying to do it because it makes tons of money and it takes a lot of pressure off that one big franchise. Like you don't always have to crank out X-Men films every single year if you have a bunch of other franchises inside that story universe that are really popular too. So now they have Deadpool, that makes 2, so they're really happy about this. X-Force would make 3 if it ends up being successful. And the Deadpool writers have said that they are involved with the X-Force movie, meaning that there's going to be some Deadpool in it. I mean, it just makes sense. But they might have to change the way Deadpool shows up in that X-Force movie, just because the exact storyline for the beginning, like the very first X-Force comic, was pretty straight. It was Cable and the New Mutants trying to stop Strife, working with Department K, and they would run into Deadpool every once in a while, but Deadpool wasn't a part of the team or anything like that. X-Force #1 dropped in 1991. Deadpool didn't become a part of X-Force, an actual part of the team, until 2010. So you're talking like 19 years worth of stories where Deadpool was mostly the villain in any X-Force story. But for the most part, usually when X-Force went up against Deadpool, Deadpool had been hired by someone else to steal something, to kill someone, and X-Force was brought in to try and stop him. So that's kind of the way I'm expecting Deadpool to show up in the X-Force movie. He'll still be his own thing, but X-Force will be brought on to stop Deadpool. So Deadpool doesn't have to fundamentally change as a character. Cable can still be a hero, and if they really want to be crazy, they could totally do that story from Uncanny X-Force. It's going to be a couple years before we see the X-Force movie. They don't even have a release date for it yet. But the storyline from Uncanny X-Force is all about the resurrection of Apocalypse. His followers are trying to recreate him, and it leads to the creation of the Apocalypse clone Evan, Kid Apocalypse. Now, they're just doing X-Men Apocalypse right now. I don't think that they're going to kill him at the end of the movie. He seems too big. You never truly kill big bad characters in comic book movies. They just go away for a long time. So I'm not expecting them to do Kid Apocalypse, but you guys can let me know in the comments, do you think there's any chance that they would try to do an Uncanny X-Force storyline where X-Force comes together and tries to stop Apocalypse from being resurrected or being brought back in some big way? It seems like they try to keep the story a little bit simpler than that, like the Deadpool movie, for instance. They removed a bunch of characters so that they could save money, and doing Kid Apocalypse would require a lot of special effects. So I think any X-Force story they did would be based on the original conceit of the team. Them just being a team trying to stop Deadpool from doing something crazy. If you never read the Deadpool versus X-Force comic book, that was also just like a limited run. It was just this funny story where Deadpool is hired by someone to go back in time and change the past. Deadpool goes rogue and saves Hitler, keeps Hitler alive well into the 90s, so Nazis have completely taken over America, and Cable has to go stop him. He's just like, son of a bitch. He has to go back in time and stop Deadpool from changing history. Because they've already said that Cable is going to stay in present day whenever he and Deadpool team up for their next movie, we'll probably only be seeing jokes about time travel, but I totally think they would try to do the Strife character eventually, so Executioner's Song would be a really awesome storyline to set up in that first X-Force movie. That's really what I think they'll try to do, because if X-Force is successful, they can build it out into a trilogy, they can do Executioner's Song eventually, but that's such a big story that you kind of have to work up to it. And whatever X-Force ends up being, it'll be more of a Cable story than a Deadpool story. It'll be like a Cable story with a lot of Deadpool in it. Let me know in the comments though. Let's assume for the sake of this video that X-Force gets a new trilogy. I mean, it might take them a while to get all those 3 movies out. What story do you want them to do that will cross over those 3 movies? Each movie kind of has to be its own self-contained story, but beyond that, think about the macro story that would cross all 3 of those movies, which I think is Strife, Executioner's Song. I think that's a very safe bet, because it also kind of ties in with the Apocalypse stuff, but only tangentially. It's mostly a story about Cable trying to kill his clone, who just happens to be working for Apocalypse. So what's going to happen next is there's some more Marvel stuff happening this weekend, some Captain America Civil War, some Avengers stuff. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. You guys have been leaving some awesome Deadpool suggestions for bonus videos, so I'll probably start doing those next week because a couple things are on break. While you wait for all that stuff to post and the Marvel stuff this weekend, you can click here for all my Deadpool videos, and you can click here to learn all about Ben Affleck changing the Batman v Superman script. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.